The Amazon Web Services global infrastructure is a collection of many physical data centers placed around the world. These data centers are physical facilities that house thousands of servers. And these racks of equipment include not only servers, but other underlying hardware infrastructure that you might find on premises, for example, in your data center. Things like storage arrays, backup units, routers, switches, and so on. The heating, ventilation, and air conditioning is planned very carefully in these facilities to ensure that equipment runs as long as possible and as efficiently as possible. There are power generators in case of a power grid outage to keep services running. There are also multiple internet connections, so there's a lot of redundancy built into these facilities. On the security side of these data centers, physically there are things like fencing, gates, guards, security bollards, which are used to protect from impacts such as vehicles ramming into the side of a building. There is property lighting and internal lighting, motion sensors, man traps, which ensure that a secondary internal door only opens when an exterior first door has closed completely. And that prevents people from sneaking in behind a valid, legitimate person that's allowed into the facility. There are also access cards required to gain access to AWS data centers and logs of entry and exit. Amazon Web Services, in terms of a global network infrastructure, uses the notion of regions and availability zones. And as we see pictured in the diagram, a region is a collection of one or more availability zones. Now, that's not to say that one availability zone equals one Amazon Web Services data center. That's not the correlation. It might, but it doesn't always have that relationship. So when we take a look at an AWS region, we're talking about a geographic area, a large geographic area, such as US West. So when we build new AWS resources like EC2 virtual machines, we can place those in specific regions. Now, the reality is that some newer AWS services might be unavailable in some regions while available in others. And when you're working with Amazon Web Services as an administrator, whether at the command line, programmatically, or using the AWS Web Console, you can specify the region that you want to work in. We also have to bear in mind that AWS resources are not replicated across different regions, at least by default. However, you can configure things like S3 storage bucket cross-region replication, but that's something you have to configure, and there is a charge for cross-region data transfers. So we need to be aware then of viewing and managing resources